We should be quick about this.
Give me the tripod.
It's in the trunk. Here, you want me to hold it?
Okay. Hold still. Oh, hey,
My name is Andre Kriegman.
and I am Cal Gabriel.
1, 2, 3, go.
And
we are the Army of Two.
This is our high school located in our town. It is our worst enemy.
It is our nemesis.
There will be a series of missions followed by a final big-ass mission called Zero Day! That's it.
Oh, we're done now, right?
Yeah. God, I hate school. I hate it. These are the best years of your life, Andre.
Zero Day. This movie only recently came onto my radar in the last few months, which is surprising because I've done a lot of research into the actual source material and I thought that I would have ran into it by now. Maybe I did at some stage and I can't remember, but I highly doubt that because ever since I've watched this, it has not left my mind. This is honestly one of the creepiest and most unnerving movies I have seen in a long time. It is a found footage movie released in 2003, and as you might have guessed, those two teenagers in the beginning, Calvin and Andre, intend to shoot up their school. The movie is obviously inspired by the Columbine Massacre of 1999, and although it's not a direct depiction, it is very close. As you may know, the Columbine killers, Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, left behind a collection of video recordings known as the basement tapes. Most of these tapes have not been released to the public, but there are full transcripts that are very easy to get your hands on. Time magazine even did a full story about the tapes the same year that it happened. The director of this movie, Ben Cocchio, saw coverage of the attack the same day that it happened, and he wanted to address the story in a way that felt real and not exaggerated for cinema. And that is when we got this, a movie with a tiny budget that shows us two teenagers planning an attack on their school, but also just living their lives. So many of these scenes appear normal and even goofy at times, which is exactly what makes this project so eerie. We know what's looming in the background, but everything appears so ordinary, and that's what made the actual Columbine attacks so disturbing. The fact that all of this was happening right under this small town's radar. With that being said, I want to talk about this movie and show you some of it so you can see how truly unnerving it is. It goes as follows. After they make their declaration at the school, we see one of the teenagers, Andre, showing the camera a collection of weapons and trinkets he has in his closet. He gleefully shows the camera some bullets, fake IDs, fireworks, and a plethora of other things. After this, we see the pair lighting up some fireworks, and then we get a short monologue from Calvin, where he doesn't really say anything significant except that he knows more than the world.
Everything is planned so methodically. It's gonna be unreal. It's gonna be beautiful. We're gonna leave you all behind. Just sticks in the mud that Andre and I have made. And we're gonna walk away. See, we see more than you do.
What we see after this, however, is what I consider to be the first moment of the movie that is very uncanny and strange. It's a birthday party of sorts for Andre, who has just turned 18 years old. His parents are there with Calvin and they are all joking around. He's been given a camera as a present and he's using it to record this jovial day. Like I said, it's very strange and it's weird to see how normal and happy this day feels. The acting is very realistic, not overdone or forced, and it just feels like a natural conversation between a relatively ordinary family. And that's because it kind of is. The actor who plays Andre in this movie is actually called Andre, and the people playing his parents are actually his parents in real life. Some of the names and places are made up, but a lot of it is improvised. So the reason it feels like two parents having a normal conversation with their son is because that is what's happening. It's one of the many things that makes this movie feel so authentic and real.
You know, I hate to be the guy to break it to you on the 18th birthday of all days, but life isn't always fair, you know. Just because he gets away with something and he's a bad guy, you know, sometimes you do good things and it goes totally unnoticed as well. So,
Gee, that's a major mood booster right there. Who needs Prozac when I got you, Dad? Now you see what I have to put up with.
These are
Well,
the best years of your
yeah,
life.
those would be the best years of your life.
a group hug for the camera.
Get out of here if you want to come back.
Alright, let's get out of here.
After this, the pair go to a house party at Andre's cousin's house, and neither seem to really be enjoying themselves, so they leave relatively early. They then execute their first quote-unquote mission when they take out a box of old eggs and throw it at a popular classmate's house. It's a relatively mundane act of rebellion, but that doesn't stop them from fleeing from the scene in a hasty manner. They get very excited about what they've just done, and again, it looks like an incredibly ordinary night in the lives of two slightly antisocial teenagers. This is something that the movie does exceptionally well. After this, we see the pair going to the bank to put the first batch of tapes they've recorded into a safety deposit box. This will be a recurring location in the movie as they record more and more. At this point of the movie, we see Calvin getting his braces off at the dentist, and that is followed by a significantly more disturbing clip. A sort of tour given by Andre of his father's gun collection. He goes through the various different weapons in thorough detail, and it's disturbing to watch him calmly explain the collection to the viewers, especially when he makes jokes about what he intends to do with them.
My dad taught me how to hunt when I was a wee young lad, and he always made me wait downstairs so that I didn't know where he was getting the guns and where the key was. Truth be told, I've known where the key was since the 5th grade. I was just humoring him. .20 gauge double barrel shotgun.
Cool.
Now in the time I've done that and closed it up, 3 football players have tackled me and bashed my head in with a chair. Not good.
We then see a clip of Calvin walking around a graveyard with a girl named Rachel. The two are joking and laughing as they wander through the area, seemingly having quite a good time. The tone of the conversation changes when Andre is brought up, with Rachel expressing concerns about him, saying that he's angry and a bit of a loose cannon, and that when Calvin hangs around him, he's not himself. She even jokes around that maybe Calvin does have some anger and evil trapped inside, and they both laugh this off.
Andre's the violent one, not me.
I just heard you say Andre's violent.
I didn't say that. He's not violent either.
I don't know, sometimes the way he talks about people and just interacts with everyone is just
You mean like
a little... Not me all the time, he's just a little offbeat, a little strange. He has a lot of anger.
Problems or just anger in general?
Well, he probably has anger because he has problems that I don't know about, you know.
But who would you consider the leader of the Andre Cal army of 2? Is it me or Andre?
Andre?
You think it's Andre?
I don't know, when you're with him, you're different than you are now.
How am I now?
And now you're the Cal that I've known for a really long time, and when you're with Andre, you're like Andre number 2.
Wait, why do you think that, like, I'm not he's not Cal number 2 and I'm Cal number 1? How do you know that he isn't copying off of my style, yo?
Unless you have some sort of evil locked inside that I've never seen before, it's Andre.
Oh, I lock it inside. Nobody sees it. I keep it from everyone.
Yeah.
So this is a good point to mention the roles that both Andre and Calvin are seemingly playing here. This clip should give you a pretty good hint, but if you haven't been able to tell, it's very likely that Calvin is based on Dylan Klebold and Andre is based on Eric Harris. After Columbine happened, there was a lot of discourse about who was the mastermind behind everything and who pressured who into executing the attack. The general consensus was that Eric Harris was the truly evil one who manipulated Dylan Klebold into doing this with him. He fired more bullets on the actual day, took more lives, and was generally described as quite violent, while Dylan Klebold was described as a shy, well-mannered teenager who had relationships and friendships similar to the one that we see here in the movie. The media ran with this too. The Guardian even called Dylan the reluctant killer, which I must say is an extremely generous way to describe somebody who killed 5 people and shot multiple others. However, when the basement tapes were released, it revealed a different story. Two methodical killers who planned this attack to a T. Both of them wrote similar entries in their journals, believing they were gods, and both were willing assailants in this attack. Zero Day does a great job of playing into this, but staying true to the actual story. They present Calvin as a light-hearted teenager when he's not with his best friend, and they present Andre as an outcast with anger issues, but when they are both together, they are one and the same. They may have disagreements and bicker from time to time, but they are evil people who have come together to commit an atrocity, and the movie does not shy away from this fact. This is why this movie is so hard-hitting. It's clear that Ben Cocchio has done his research, and we see that constantly throughout the movie. We go from this to another monologue from Calvin. This one is a little bit more focused than the last one. He starts off by saying that the pair are going to steal guns from Andre's cousin Chris before the attack. He then says that instead of just taking his own life, he wants to leave some kind of mark before leaving this world. He gives us one final thought, telling us how crazy it is that two people like him and Andre could come together and do this.
I've been thinking, and it occurs to me that a lot of people are probably going to wonder, like, how could somebody do something like 0 Day, like what we're going to do? I'm not going to leave cleanly. I'm not just going to fade out. I'm going to make my mark, and then it'll be my time. It's almost a 1 in a million chance that two kids like me and Andre are, come together. But, that's just this town's misfortune, I guess. No, fortune. It's their fortune. It's your fortune because you're going to be the privileged few who get the wake-up call that we're delivering to you. You're going to get my meaning in this really concentrated, thick, jello-y form poured all over your homes, and everybody else will just have to see it on the news. And I know you're all going to be like, I had a cousin who was in the school, and good for you.
This clip is considerably colder than the first monologue, and there's something more disturbing about it. As the attack gets closer, Calvin's thought process is getting stranger and slightly more manic. We see it in the movie, and we also saw it in Dylan Klebold's journal. His writing started off pretty tame, perhaps a little bit edgy, but nothing out of the ordinary for a teenager. However, near the end, they were all over the place. He professed himself as a god, said that this was only his human form, and that what he and Eric planned to do was a gift in some ways. In the movie, we gradually see Calvin express this mindset. It may have always been there, but as he formulates more thoughts about what he is going to do, we see it articulated in a more cynical fashion, and in my opinion, it's one of the most disturbing elements of this movie. After this, we see the pair visiting Andre's cousin's house, who they intend to steal the guns off. On this particular day, they're going shooting in the woods, but they mention beforehand that they intend to scope his house out, which is essentially what they do after they go shooting. They film the closet he keeps his arsenal in, and they leave the house. After this sequence, we see a series of shots that show us Calvin's family having a barbecue in the woods. It doesn't last long, and afterwards we see the pair alone in Andre's bedroom, showing the viewers a website that they've made that shows us a list of tips and bits of advice for anybody who wants to do something similar to their attack. These tips don't really say much except for a few obvious statements, but it's disturbing to see them giving advice to people who want to potentially do the same thing. It's as if they're trying to lay down the blueprint for these kinds of attacks. As we now know, the Columbine attacks unfortunately did have this effect, with there being dozens of copycat attacks in the 2000s, and it's very likely that Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris wanted this exact thing to happen. In the same vein, Calvin and Andre hope that 0 Day inspires others to do what they're about to do. From here, we get another monologue from Calvin, who essentially just says that he's ready for 0 Day to happen. We then see the pair go into their local town, and without Andre knowing, Calvin performs some kind of a spoken word poem. Andre is not happy about this and wants to leave. But before this happens, Calvin antagonizes a couple of people who are also performing, and they end up getting into a scuffle outside. Andre is furious about this because he believes that it could compromise the plan. He screams in the car out of anger, but Calvin doesn't take him that seriously, and he begins joking around shortly after this. Andre joins in, and they both lighten up.
I'm sorry, Lieutenant. Forgive me for speaking so bluntly, sir.
And stop talking like you're in the military. What happens if they go home and they tell their parents, hey, guess what happened? Some kid in an army shirt. So then they're like, oh, do they go to your school? Why, yes, they do. Well, I'm going to call the principal and get on the phone with him right away. They call the principal, you get called out of the office, you get sent to counseling or something. Your parents tighten down on you. They call my parents tighten down on me. Now what? Where do you want to go? What do you want to do?
We're done.
So we're done here, or we're done.
Here, okay. Start the car. Pull up to the exit. Okay, ready? I want you to close your eyes
Okay.
and drive. Go.
You're just gonna tell me where to go.
Yeah, do it. Go. Close your eyes. Turn right. Come on, keep them closed. Right. Okay, straight. Are they really close? Come on, close them.
It's an interesting sequence because while Andre is getting upset, Calvin is joking around saying that he's the leader, calling him sir and lieutenant, but it's an obvious joke. However, like we discussed earlier, after the actual Columbine attack, Eric Harris was considered to be the leader and Dylan Klebold was thought of as his loyal follower. While it's possible and quite likely that Eric Harris possessed more militant qualities, this was a plan that was created mutually between the two of them. And it's interesting to see the movie's take on this. Calvin jokes around about this in almost a self-aware fashion. They know the perception that people have of them. We see this earlier in the conversation that Calvin has with Rachel, and it's intriguing and quite eerie to see them playing with it so lightly. Maybe one of them is more of a leader than the other, but neither of them really care. Calvin is not a follower. He is someone who is eager to plan and commit a horrible act with his friend, just like Dylan Klebold was. 50 minutes into the movie, we see another monologue from Calvin. He says that they've made a concrete date to do everything, May 1st. He also says that he has no intention of leaving the school, that 0 day will be his last day. We then see the pair at the bank, putting more footage into the safety deposit box. They now have over 30 hours of footage. They talk about how they're going to get this footage to the media, stating that they'll leave a final tape in their car that will contain their last words and one final shot of them running into the school.
The way I figured it the day before we do it, we could, or sometime ahead of time, before we do it, we can do a, kind of like a last will and testament kind of tape, and saying, you know, by the way, we've left these tapes in these safety deposit boxes in my name, and then just be like, yeah, and if
Leave it someone.
yeah, we'll leave it in the car when we go in. Oh yeah. And we'll just have like the last shot will be us walking in, and then they won't see anything else after that.
And they're gonna, like, actually watch them, though.
Wouldn't you watch them? Get used to it. Every CD you have, every video game, they're gonna go through and say, "Oh, Mortal Kombat, it was because of that."
Yeah, but it wasn't because of any of that. They would be giving them a false...
But that's just how stupid people are.
They then realize that everything that they own will be scrutinized and studied. Every CD, movie, and game they've ever played. Because of this, they decide to make a bonfire and burn almost all of their possessions. While doing so, they seemingly come to a realization that they actually have to do this now. For them, this is a metaphorical point of no return. They have a brief conversation about prom, and then the sequence ends. After this, we see two very different scenes. The first one shows us Calvin going to prom with Rachel and a group of her friends, and the second scene shows us Andre's father recording him at a job at a pizzeria in their local town. These happen on the same night, and although they're doing very different things, we can see a lot of similarities between the two. They both seem distant, and it's evident that they would rather be hanging out with each other instead of doing what they're doing. Calvin is in a limo with a group of people and seemingly only knows Rachel. The awkward tension is quite palpable, and he feels and looks quite out of place. This is because it is yet again real. Ben Cochio actually put the actor Calvin in a limo with a group of teenagers he did not know, and he gave them a loose script to go by. In the end, Calvin decides to get dropped off at Andre's house. Rachel is not a fan of this, and after he leaves, the group speaks about how they didn't really like him because he seems awkward and strange. It's interesting that even when Calvin is doing something social and outgoing, he still seems like an outcast and he still ends up hanging out with Andre regardless of what he is doing. It makes the whole thing seem inevitable. These two were attached at the hip, and any attempt to change that was useless. A small side note that I think is worth a mention is that Eric and Dylan actually did work at a pizza place, and Dylan actually did go to the prom days before the attack. It's another moment that shows the attention to detail. At this stage, we entered the final 3 sequences that the pair record. The first one is a harrowing watch. It is the pair's final words to everybody in their lives and the world in general. They talk about how this was inevitable, how their parents couldn't have done anything to stop them, and how nobody was involved but them. They constantly remind us of this fact.
I mean, when our parents find these tapes, I mean, what are they going to think? Oh my god, I was asleep upstairs while they were in the basement recording this. We could have known. We could have stopped them.
No. Right, so you found us and you think, Jesus, I'm sending them to counseling. We have to stop this. We'd go through counseling, we'd wait a period, and then...
We'd just come out and do it anyway.
Exactly.
There are no reasons, and you're all going to look for them, but you're not going to find them.
You made me what I am.
For years, I've been tormented by all of you assholes. Make no mistake, we've been insulted.
Yeah.
Now it's time for the duel.
We will be more powerful than God.
We're gonna be God. No mistake about that.
And don't waste this opportunity. Don't just say that these people's lives were lost for nothing, because it's just stupid. Just wake up.
We're not trying to waste anybody's life. We're trying to show people what they should value.
This was a sentiment we also saw in the basement tapes. Dylan and Eric constantly tried to write off any blame from their family and friends. This may be because they didn't want anybody taking any credit, but it's probably because they genuinely didn't want their friends and family to be harassed or blamed after the fact. On March 15th, 1999, Eric Harris was quoted as saying the following: "Don't arrest any of our friends, any of our co-workers, any of our family members. Don't arrest anyone because they didn't have a clue, and that's that. They just didn't have a clue. It would not solve anything to arrest them or even go to their house and talk to them." This was ineffective to say the least. Philip Duran and Mark Maines were sentenced to 4.5 years and 6 years in prison respectively for selling firearms to the pair. They worked with both of them at the pizzeria, and even though they didn't know that they were planning this attack, it was irrelevant because they sold weapons to minors and they were subsequently charged. The parents of both Dylan and Eric were intensely scrutinized as well, and their friends and acquaintances were the subject of intense media coverage, and in some cases, they were even investigated to ensure that they had no involvement. This directly ties into what we're seeing in the movie. The pair are constantly trying to remove anybody else from the situation, but of course that is not how this works. They're not just going to ruin the lives of the people they kill and shoot. They're going to ruin their parents' lives, they're going to ruin some of their friends' lives, and anybody who feels close or attached to either of them is going to think about this every day for the rest of their lives. No amount of talking into a camera is going to change that. Near the end of their monologue, they call themselves gods, and they tell the media that they can access any of the tapes they have made along the way. After this, they break into Andre's cousin's house as intended. They steal a host of weapons while he's out of the house and even leave a note. It seems as if they have a bit of guilt while doing this, but it doesn't stop them from going through with it. We enter the final sequence that they record. Andre and Calvin pull up to the school. They take their weapons out of the truck and start to get them in order. Both of them are clearly nervous. Andre tells Calvin he could not have done this with anyone else, and Calvin shares his sentiment. While they are having this conversation, a car drives past them while they are both holding guns. The person in the car is none the wiser, and Calvin smiles at the camera. It's a very creepy scene, and it's the last time either of them look directly at us, because after this, the camera is put down on the car's dashboard and the pair exit the vehicle. They run into the school, weapons drawn, and we see a lingering shot as they leave the view of the camera.
Dude, I want you to know, I couldn't have done this with anyone else. I don't know what would have happened to me if we hadn't been friends. Ready? Let's get this done. Let's kick the tires and light the fires.
This could have easily been the last shot of the movie, and Ben Cochio actually designed it so that it would look like the last shot. In the director's commentary, he said that he wanted people to feel like this because, theoretically, it is the last shot of Andre and Calvin's movie. They aren't going to record anything else themselves. This is their final tape. much like the actual Columbine killers, who made their final tape 30 minutes before they entered the school. They too treated it like they were shooting a movie, as if they were the protagonists of some twisted drama. But we know that this isn't the case. It may have been the ending of their movie, but it's also the beginning of something incredibly real and bone-chilling. Seconds after their last shot, we see a new angle, a CCTV recording of a group of students in the school. They're speaking to each other in a frantic manner. We then hear a recording of a 911 call. A student tells the operator that there's an active shooter in the premises. While this is happening, another group of students run inside the hallway, but they are quickly pushed back by gunfire. For the first time, we see Andre and Calvin in the actual school. The operator is still on the line, and we can hear her attempt to communicate with the pair, to no avail. The students run through the library, attempting to escape, but are quickly followed by Andre and Calvin. On the way, they pick up a phone from somebody that they shot, and the operator is on the line, meaning we can hear everything that she's saying while the pair are carrying out the attack. They go to the back of the library where a handful of students have taken refuge. At this stage, they begin shooting at the students one by one. Some of them escape, but most of them are killed. They find a couple of people hiding behind the couches, and they kill them too.
Shots fired. Shots fired. You pick up?
It's a harrowing few minutes, and it's relatively accurate as well, with most of the killings in the Columbine massacre happening in the library too. The real attack on the library lasted roughly 6.5 minutes, which is also the amount of time that Calvin and Andre carry out this attack. After they are done, they realize that there isn't anybody left in the school. They have all evacuated. They go back to the library, and Andre suggests that they have a shootout with the police, but Calvin says that it's over, claiming that he'd rather die by his own bullet than a bullet from the police. Andre agrees with this, and the pair grab 2 of their shotguns and kneel on the floor. On the count of 3, they take their own lives.
Andre?
1,
Andre,
2,
we can get you out of this. Shots fired. Perpetrators may be down.
After this, we see one final sequence. In the middle of the night, a group of teenagers drive through the same area that Calvin and Andre lived. They stop at a field where an array of crosses have been left. They bypass a few crosses that have the victims' names on it, and then they see 2 crosses that show the names Calvin and Andre. They pour gasoline over the crosses and burn them. The last shot we see is them driving away, the 2 crosses burning fitfully in the distance. The last line of dialogue in the whole movie is one of the teenagers saying, "That's their souls." This again happened in real life. After Columbine, 15 crosses were placed outside the school as a tribute. They had written the names of everybody that died, and they included Dylan and Eric. However, the father of Daniel Rohrbough, one of the victims, took these crosses down, stating that killers should not be memorialized. Zero Day uses this as a way to close the movie, and having them being burned down with the final statement being so poignant is all round a very effective close to this project.
Open your window, open your window.
You guys got everything?
There's the first one.
1, 2, 3, get them up. Okay. Oh yeah. Nice. Okay, go. I got it.
Get that.
You get that?
Oh, that's their souls on fire, man.
In a lot of ways, Zero Day kind of came and went. It grossed $8,000 at the box office, being considered somewhat of a bomb, and for a long time it sort of stayed in limbo. The Columbine case, however, has never lost interest. People still analyze it to this day, and because of this, Zero Day has always loomed in the background of that case. It is widely considered to be the best movie ever made about Columbine, but personally, I think it's the best movie ever made of this nature. And trust me, during my research, I've seen quite a few of these. There are many films that portray a shooting in this capacity, and you can pretty much guarantee that anything featuring 2 killers is directly inspired by Columbine. Take the movie Elephant, for example, by Gus Van Sant. Released in 2003, this movie also depicted a shooting of this nature, but focused more on the other students, the faculty, and their reaction to it. It's an interesting experimental movie, but it took a few too many creative liberties that were a bit too much in my opinion, like the strange reaction that the kids had to the shooting, the 2 killers being romantic romantically involved, and one of the shooters killing the other. A lot of this was based on strange, unsubstantiated rumors about Columbine, and it might have been put into the movie for artistic purposes, but it feels disrespectful to the gravity of the real-life events. It also had a budget of $3 million, 150 times the budget that Zero Day had, which was made for about $20,000. And still, Elephant doesn't even come close to representing the actual events in the same way that Zero Day does. What makes this movie so scary is that it's mostly not scary. It feels so normal, like two friends hanging out. Even when they're planning the attack, they mostly act like teenagers. The movie almost makes you feel like they're just being edgy, like they're not actually going through with this. They just want to look and feel cool. After all, these are kids who have romantic interests, family members that they claim to love, a semblance of a social circle, hobbies, passions, jobs, and more, but all of this is worth throwing away for their plan. Just like Dylan and Eric, they will happily disregard their lives and the lives of those around them just to enact this horrible atrocity. And that's what makes them truly evil. They weren't monsters hiding in the shadows. They were monsters sitting in a classroom, having dinner with their parents and going to their prom. They were evil people doing innocent things, and Zero Day depicts this better than anything I have ever seen. Sometimes fact is scarier than fiction, and I don't think there's a movie that proves that more than Zero Day.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Calvin. Happy birthday to you. Go! Go!